This episode of the In Focus series features Steve Moxon. Steve is a kickboxer and owner and head coach of the training room in Geelong, Victoria.
Hey Steve, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How's things?
Very, very good. I'm hit the ground running with the gym open, and and for myself too, trying to train that bit harder, so I feel better about myself as we're working harder. I always find moving around always makes me feel better. So Always hit the ground running and straight back into it.
Perfect, man. Let's take it back to this photo here. This was taken at one of my first shows at the Coburg Town Hall on a brute force promotion. You were fighting as a main event against the Greek team brought in by George Kolovos. And it was one of my first shows that I was working by myself, and it was a very interesting venue because it had the ring in the center, and then the change rooms to the backstage area wasn't too far away. So it was my first time actually running back and forth to the backstage room. And as a photographer, I was also a martial artist at the time, and I was also competing at the time. So it just gave me a nice insight to what happened backstage. And because you were the main event, I think you had your own little change room, a little VIP area. What I saw back then, what set you apart is you had your whole team there, the whole t-shirts, all the sponsors on your shorts and on his t-shirts. I thought, man, he's doing things right. And you can see, some corners rocking up with random t-shirts and short shorts to the ring, but you were a proper team. Can you talk a bit about your team with Dave back in the day?
As most people know, I actually moved to Sydney for probably the start as my career was taking off. I moved to Sydney for 4 years, and the 8 weeks before I moved to Sydney, I had a fight in Melbourne. So I've called up Dave Ashmore, who was in Ballarat, and I lived at the time in back of Smash. So we're talking like a 40-minute drive away. I called up Dave Ashmore, just a random phone call, and said, "Hey Dave, I'm wondering if I can come and train with you for my next fight because I'm about to move to Sydney, and I need to train for my fight." And he said, "We would love to have you down." And I trained with Dave for 8 weeks. I fought in Melbourne. I won my very first fight against Taz Tasiris. I moved away to Sydney for 4 years. My career went crazy. I got signed to Glory Kickboxing. And in that process, 4 years later, I call up Dave Ashmore and say, "Hey, Dave, I'm moving back to Ballarat. Can you be my coach?" And he nearly fell off his chair. So that's how it started with Dave and I. So we knew each other briefly. And then I said, "Dave, do you want to, let's do this, take my career to the next level." At the moment, I was already traveling around the world and fighting. I just got signed to Glory, multi-fight deal. So I got to take Dave Ashmore with me around the world.
Yeah.
And you're talking about t-shirts with sponsors and things like that. I'll tell you something. If you have a look at the sponsor logos, Brenway Construction was Dave Ashmore. Punish Fight Gear was because they helped out Dave's gym. That wasn't for me. My Moxon was my own logo. So everyone was in the gym. All my sponsors or the logos that I had there, they actually weren't people that were giving me sponsorship money. They were just the people within my gym that I wanted to support their business.
That's how it starts, eh?
I never did it for the money. I didn't have sponsor logos on. On the top right, there's MC2. Was my management company that I was starting at the time. MC Squared, Energy equals MC Squared. That was my little management business and promotion business. Energy equals MC Squared. And so that's a really good one because, there's logos on there. There's even rhino mouth guards on my leg there. These people aren't giving me money. These are just people that have supported me. So I wanted to give back to them. And I feel like that's where a lot of people have to realize that by Rhino Mouthguards giving me a mouthguard 5 years earlier, literally 5 years earlier, I'm going to support them as much as I can because they helped me when I needed it. And
That's always a big thing. Hey, fighters in the start, they oftentimes forget who got them there in the first place. And even a simple message saying, "Hey, can I please put your logo on my fight shorts or t-shirts during my fight," can mean a lot to them.
Sure, exactly right. So I just wanted to make sure I was giving back. And, and any t-shirt you'll see that has my old Moxon logo or these t-shirts that I'm wearing right now, a matter of fact, I paid for them myself, right? So I had never had anybody give me money or give me t-shirts or pay for anything for me. I was very, conscious of the fact that I'm happy with some sponsors, but it's not about sponsors controlling my career or I owe them anything. I wanted to make sure that I'm showing my support to the people that have supported me throughout the years.
That's perfect, man.
Yeah.
Now, on the same night, I think this is a flying knee, a very rare moment when you're throwing flying knees, because I see yourself as a guy with heavy hands, solid base, and heavy kicks. Can you describe your fighting style? And you've moved around too. You've had boxing fights, kickboxing fights, K1 fights, and even a few sneaky Muay Thai fights here and there. Can you talk about your fighting style and how it's changed over the last few years?
Yeah, and you know what? It's definitely changed. I've definitely evolved, and there was also a time that I feel like I was going a bit backwards. It's easy to explain because when I first started out, I went 16 fights undefeated, right? And then I got to 30 fights with 2 losses. So when I was starting out, I was beating everybody just with really strong basics. And when I say basics, I mean punches and kicks. Because at the end of the day, it's kickboxing. You've got to punch and you must kick. And what happened was later on in my career, I started knocking everybody out just with my hands, right? And my fights were back to back so fast. I was having like 7, 8, 9 fights a year, with at least 6 of them being international fights. I was having fights so regularly that I was wanting to protect my legs, my shins.
Right.
And I started to neglect my legs a bit. So that's something that I can stand on and say, you know what? I think I neglected the basics of kickboxing at some point in my career.
Because you were so comfortable with the hands early on.
I started to rely on my hands too much. It's like when you're swimming, right? Have you ever swam in the pool and you're like, shit, my arms are tired, I might use my legs, or shit, my legs are tired, I'll just use my arms. I was doing that when I was fighting, right?
Yeah.
And so what I can always say is that I would, the way I would focus is like, I need to fight like early Steve Moxon, punch and kick and punch, put it all together. And that's what any fighter has to do. Think about being an all-round fighter, because there was a time in my career where I was just relying on my hands. So this jumping knee here, I was fighting Mikalopoulos or whatever his name was from Greece. George Kolovos brought him over. Brought 4 Greek guys over to fight 4 Aussies, and I was the main event. And this guy was ranked number 2 in Greece behind Mike Zambidis. And he was a very good southpaw, and I beat him and dropped him once or twice throughout the fight. And I knew that I was at a level in my fight career where I was fighting big fights, but I also understood that I'm there for the crowd's entertainment, right? I knew I was fighting really well, but when the opportunity is there, you need to be exciting. So at the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, the crowd has paid their money to be there. So I want to be tough. I want to be fast. I want to be entertaining. I want to be strong. And just want to leave it all in the ring. So when the opportunity is there, I'll throw a spinning back fist. I'll throw the jumping knees. It's got to be exciting at the end of the day for the crowd that's paid their money.
Perfect, man.
So
This was
a jumping knee that he hit the ground, I think.
Yeah. Like I said, this was one of the early shows that I came to. And, back in the day, there were tons of professional fight nights where half the card's full of people wearing shin pads,
Yeah.
And you can see the difference in quality from the first fights to the main event. And like you said, you're the main event, so you had to do a bit of crowd pleasing too. And I really saw it in this main event, showing the showmanship from yourself and seeing how a main event should be.
Yeah, because, they're really, you can see it, right? You can see the level of speed, the level of accuracy, the level of, catching and countering or getting hit and almost acknowledging it.
Yep.
Because we both have that respect in the ring. They're like, yeah, we're doing, we're good at what we do and we're here to prove it.
Exactly, man.
Yeah. Great picture.
This was this was the first time of me meeting you. And to be honest, I was a bit starstruck meeting you because this was back in the day when I saw your posters everywhere, billboards with the giant signs, kickboxing all over Melbourne. And funny story about this one, I got told to come down here the night before by my friend Vivo, who was doing the video recording at the time. And it was pretty cool because I didn't have much exposure to the fight scene and I just relied on my friends and contacts. And because I was friends with him at the time, he was doing some video work. He asked me, "Hey, Will, did you want to come down, take some photos, get some experience?" I said, "Sure, why not?" Had a free afternoon. I wasn't being paid for it. I just wanted the exposure, came for the experience, and I also got a cool picture out of it too. The bloody glove picture that got a lot of feedback from people over the last few years. But seeing you in this moment here as a main event, seeing all the lights and cameras, made me realize, okay, this was what it was like for like a main event fighter to get all the publicity, doing all the media work. What was it like for you doing media work for these kind of shows?
Yeah, one thing that I learned a lot about early on when you're fighting on the main event and on every show or fighting overseas, and you have to understand there's more to fighting than fighting. Fighting is just one part of it. The other part is, can you speak well? Can you do an interview? Can you do your paperwork good? Can you make sure all your visa is up to date so you can like fly overseas and no one's hassling you for it? Can you smile and can you be charismatic? I think I wanted to take the approach that I am intelligent, I am charismatic, I'm knowledgeable. I don't want to swear every second word. I see a lot of these UFC fighters doing, dropping the F-bomb everywhere, and you're like, you're meant to be the role model for the young kids. I want to be that fighter that kids look up to and say, I love Steve Moxon because of who he is inside the ring and outside of the ring. So I learned that early on. I enjoyed speaking. I enjoy staying humble, but I'm confident. And I want to say to anyone, don't mistake, it's the famous words of 50 Cent. Don't mistake my confidence for arrogance,
Yeah.
I'm confident in what I do and how I speak because I believe in myself.
You were featured as a main event for a lot of shows in Australia. Did you felt that add to the pressure, or did that just excite you even more for your fights?
No, it excited me a lot. I always liked the likes of when I fought on George Kolovos's show against a Greek guy. You got to understand, these 4 Greek guys were brought over to beat us. Even though George Kolovos is he's Greek, but he's an Australian in Melbourne, he actually brought these Greek guys over to beat us. So I had something extra to prove.
Yeah.
And I beat up.
It was a good night for the Aussies too. I think
that's right. I think so. Yeah, you're right. So I love, and you know what? I feed off the pressure. I love it. So I'll think about things like that. I think, they're trying to prove me wrong. I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to show them. I love that pressure about fighting. I love throwing myself into those situations. Like I say, fight or flight, and I'll always choose fight.
It just makes the win even more better. Hey.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it's always good to win.
Moving forward to 2013, the start of 2013, this was the return of Tarik Solak's A1 show. And I heard stories about those Tarik shows back in the day, which I missed out because I wasn't involved in the scenes back then. So when I heard he was back in town, I just had to jump on the chance to be ringside at one of those shows. You fought international fighter Yohan Lidon at this fight. Can you tell me about the experience?
Wow, where can I start, man? So this guy, Yohan Lidon, about 110 fights. Tarik Solak comes into town. All right, let me tell you. I'm going to tell you, how long have we got? Can I tell you this whole story?
As long as you want, mate.
All right, so I'll make you laugh. I'll make you like, what the hell? Okay, so at the time, I get a phone call from Tarik Solak, with his Turkish accent. Hello, Steve Moxon, I want to come in. I want to take you out for dinner. I want to meet you. He says, I hear that some people like you and some people don't like you. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. Man, I've never told this story online to people.
That's still mate.
Here's an exclusive. Okay. As you know, I'm a country boy. I come from Balan, yeah? At the time, I was training the local football team for strength and conditioning and endurance and boxing. He calls me from Turak and says, Steve, I want to come and take you out for dinner. Where will you be on Thursday night? So, well, Tarik, I'm training a football team in Balan. He goes, cool. I will come and meet you and we'll go out for dinner. I'll take you. I said, Tarik, it's bland. There's no restaurants. I said, there's a McDonald's on the highway. Yeah, I said, we'll meet at McDonald's on the Western Highway. He said, okay, we'll meet there. He comes in his cheap suit that he wears, and he shouted me McChicken meal. And yeah, I remember he put his hand on my neck, on my shoulders, when he was talking to me to be a bit dominant. I want to put your name in lights. I want to take you around the world.
Here we go.
I'm going to make you a bigger star. Little did he know, I just moved back to Victoria and signed a 6-fight deal with Glory for F's sake, right? So I was already cool. I said, cool, I'll fight. I'll fight on your show, but I'm not signing nothing, but I'll fight on your show. Okay. He calls me out and says, I've got to fight a rematch with Taz Taziris. A rematch with Taz Taziris, right? So we're talking years ago. I said, cool, great fight. Then about a month before the fight, he says, Taz Taziris is out. I have somebody else for you. He's from France. I'm bringing him over. Little did I know that Tarik Solak managed this guy with Lucy Tui. They managed this Yohan Lidon and took him all over the world to fight. They said, but the fight isn't at 70 kilos, it's at 75 kilos. I said, cool, let's fight. So, I lost that fight on split points, but that experience with Tarik Solak was very, very on shaky the whole time. And then I lost the fight, fought really well. One judge gave it to me, 2 judges gave it to him. It was a very, very good, tough fight. He's a very good fighter, very nice guy. The next day, Tarik Solak delivered the check to me. He drove all the way to Ballarat, where I lived, and Yohan Lidon was in the passenger seat.
Wow.
He drove with Yohan Lidon the next morning to my house in Ballarat to pay me for the fight, personally. So that was a funny story. And then a couple of months later, so after the fight, the next morning when Tarik come and paid me with Yohan Lidon in the passenger seat, he offered me a fight in Turkey a couple of months later. And I flew to Turkey to fight a young Turkish guy for an A1 world title. So I'm a 2-time kickboxing world champion, WKF and Massa world champion. I actually won a 3rd world title, an A1 world title at middleweight in Turkey, in Istanbul. It was a great show. And the reason why I only say I'm a 2-time world champion instead of 3 is because after I fought in Turkey and I won the 3rd world title, I knocked this guy out. I fought great. I knocked him out, I think, in the 3rd or 4th round. We come back to Australia. I waited until Tarik Solak paid me. Then he said, cool, are you going to sign your name to a multi-fight deal? I said, no. He filmed this show for Foxtel. He ripped my fight off it and didn't show my fight.
Wow.
So I technically have 3 world titles, but I don't advertise that title, nor has it really been seen. But I actually fought in Istanbul for A1 world title. But that's how the fight game works. You make friends, you lose friends, that's how it goes.
It's not just
very interesting story.
It's not just fighting. There's a lot that goes into it too.
100%.
That's a great story, man. Thanks for sharing that.
No worries. And that's the first time I've ever shared that story. There you go.
Yeah.
Another story about that show. I was big on my entrance music, right? And the night before at the weigh-in, we actually had a rehearsal, right? We had a rehearsal for the show. Tarik Solak was screaming at people and swearing at people, not doing their job properly. At the rehearsal, my music was correct. It was all good.
Yep.
On the night of the fight, they played just some random song. So I stood in the back and said, change my music. Tarik Solak comes running out and says, get in the ring. You're mucking up my show. And I think it was deliberate because I know he does dodgy things like that. But anyone that's dealt with Tarik Solak over the years knows that that's how he operates.
I was actually in the corner post, so close to the flames, and every time the flame went up, I was so scared I was going to get burnt or the thing was going to explode in my face.
Cool, man. It's all good for TV. It's a very good show. Very good fights, and he flew a few good fighters over as well.
Yeah.
Being Yohan Lidon that I fought, so yeah.
Your fight with Marco Tentori. This was
Yeah.
the bloodiest I've seen you in a fight, mate. And
Yeah.
Marco wasn't a kickboxer. He wasn't a Muay Thai fighter. He was a Kung Fu stylist who took on Muay Thai fights and had some decent wins too. And I find it's very similar. There's that similarity between you two guys. You're both kickboxers and you both took on some strong Thai fighters, and you were almost seen as the underdog every fight because everyone wanted to see, or Thai fighters wanted to see you guys lose. What did you remember from this fight, and what was it like fighting someone like him?
Yeah, I know. Like, it was a middleweight fight, and I was thinking, man, this guy's big. Just because he was bouncing around on his toes like I do, but he just seemed so much bigger than me. Bouncing around on his toes, he had these long kicks. I actually think he put me on my ass once or twice from these amazing, like, side kick things he was doing.
He was very light on his feet.
Yeah, he was very, very good. But I just knew that if I keep pushing forward and grinding away, it's like people try and keep up with you for as long as they can. But if I just keep grinding away, eventually you're going to overtake him. I think I dropped him once with some good punches, but yeah, he hit me in the head with a good spinning elbow, which he threw a few of them. But yeah, but you know, it's all good. Blood is just the blood on the body just makes it look cool. Doesn't hurt, it's all good. But yeah, it was a very good fight, and I was very happy to win that one because it was a main event on the Kings of Combat. Actually, my favorite Melbourne show to fight on. I fought on Kings of Combat maybe 8, 9, or 10 times. He was flying me back from Sydney when I lived in Sydney. So yeah, I really liked those shows, and I always fought good opponents on his shows. And a matter of fact, I've never lost a fight on a Kings of Combat show. That's a good little fact. I fought the likes of Marco Tentori, Brad Riddell, Yuri Besmerny from Denmark.
Yeah.
Fought very good fighters on Kings of Combat.
Your famous rivalry with Dzhabar Askerov.
Had-
You knew this one was coming. I missed the first fight, but I was actually there to capture the second fight, and there was so much hype behind that. It was a very close first fight. You know, there was a massive support from both sides saying who was going to take the win. What was it like fighting Dzhabar, and how was it like preparing the second time around?
Okay, another great story for you that no one even knows. I went to Koh Samui, Thailand, before I was on a reality TV show. I went to Thailand for 6 weeks in the end of 2009. I went to Thailand for 6 weeks to train, and Dzhabar Askerov was in town. And this was just after Contender Asia, where Dzhabar Askerov became famous. And I drove to Lamai, which is on my little scooter, to just check out the town. I watched Dzhabar Askerov train with this little Thai guy, and Dzhabar was beating the hell out of this guy. And I was like, oh my God, he is awesome. This guy is so strong. Oh my God, I was scared. And it's crazy to think all these years later that we fought twice. When I first got asked to fight Dzhabar, I was like, said yes straight away because I knew he was moving to Australia and no one was going to put their hands up.
This was when Dzhabar first moved to Melbourne too, and I think he was trying to make his mark in town, and then you were the top dog, and I felt like it was a perfect matchup between you two as well.
Exactly, a perfect matchup, and the fact that I beat him, he sort of disappeared for a little bit from Melbourne, and then he come back. I knew we were going to fight again, maybe 2 more times, but we didn't. So after the first fight, it was great, it was awesome. I had a lot more fights. I was fighting so regularly. As a matter of fact, before I beat Dzhabar, I fought the likes of, I think it was Once on Glory, and then I think I fought another time in Europe or China. And then I fought Dzhabar Askerov. So I had a busy 3 months to start the year. This fight, so you can see where we're standing in the ring, right? See up the middle, I have these 2 big logos on either side.
Slippery logos?
Literally. So Dzhabar and I, so we're fighting really well, but a matter of fact, that ring was getting so slippery that it was impossible to even fight around the ring. So we were both kept circling and going down the corridor of the 2 logos, and made the fight so difficult, all for the 2 logos on the gym that really didn't need to be that big, or it just really hindered us.
I think a lot of promotions forget when they're using canvases, the type of material you use to print the logos on canvases. Of course, you need sponsors and the brand, but they forget what kind of material goes on and how it affects the fighters when it's all slippery and wet, because that could be a really bad night for people having to start and stop.
Sure. So a really good thing would be to almost, you got to paint the logo on, but these logos were stickers. So it was like ice skating, literally. So we kept slipping and couldn't really ground our feet to punch hard. So we kept going up the middle of the ring. So you got the photo of us right down the middle. Bryce Birthwhistle, my favorite referee in Australia, also a great coach, also a great bloke. He actually sends me messages just to see how I'm doing. We've had long talks before. He admires who I am as a person. So he's just a great man that I just respect all round. So Bryce Birthwhistle, the referee, just an all-round great guy. The fights with Dzhabar, I was really spewing that we didn't fight a third time or a fourth time.
Yeah.
Even to the point where I've spoken to promoters in China, where we've both been on the same show. I've even spoken to them about making it happen overseas, but it didn't eventuate. But hey, never say never. You never know what will happen in the future.
Exactly.
Dzhabar just signed a 7-fight deal with Arena Fights in France, actually.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said about reaching out to promoters, trying to make fights, you've had your hand at promoting and matching fights yourself, also taking on fights for yourself. How do you go on about looking for fights and seeking matchups? For myself?
Yeah, so for myself, it's been a bit easier, right? It's easier to match fights for myself because I say, you're the best, I want to fight the best. But often what happened with me and what people maybe not know is that, like, Australia is a small place, really. And kickboxing is very European. It's big in Asia, big all over Europe. Kickboxing, K1 as people want to call it, it's actually called kickboxing. K1 is the name of the promotion in Japan, right? It's like calling Hungry Jacks and McDonald's, but they're both hamburgers, right? So let's just call it hamburgers. So kickboxing is what I do, all right? So these Muay Thai fighters that want to try kickboxing and actually make some money, they're not exciting. So the promoters might give them one chance, but sure enough, they're not going to keep giving them the chance. But they always want different countries involved. And whenever they looked into Australia, it was me. I was the man. I was the one. I was the kickboxer, you know? And so that's why I feel like I got some good opportunities, because I was exciting. I was a proper kickboxer, combination fighter. And, you know, everyone that wants to fight, all these Muay Thai fighters say, I'm all about Muay Thai. It's all Muay Thai. Tell me that it's all Muay Thai when Glory's going to call up and offer you $10,000 per fight. Tell me you won't take it. Yeah, you will. So kickboxing is also, you know, a battle.
Yeah. Going back to what you said earlier, you have to be able to speak well, know how to entertain the crowd, know how to fight well, and understand what the market wants. And you just covered all of that.
Exactly right. I just never learned Muay Thai. I just learned kickboxing. So I stuck with it. And when, you know, they wanted to get Australia involved or look elsewhere, everyone was talking about me because I was fighting the best. Who else? You know, well, I think it was, who's the guy that I also knocked out? Dimitri, Mike 300. He's the only other Aussie that fought Dzhabar. He got knocked out in one round. But you know what? At least he had the balls to say, I'll fight Dzhabar Askerov. You know?
And out of curiosity, from your opinion, do you think it's easier for a high-level kickboxer to transition into Muay Thai, or a high-level Muay Thai fighter to transition into kickboxing?
Oh, great question. I've never been asked that. I actually believe, you know what, I might cop some shit from this. I actually believe it's easier to transfer from kickboxing to Muay Thai.
We have an example, Ramesh Habib.
Yeah. But Ramesh Habib come from Fighters Express, where he actually really learned kickboxing, didn't he? So yeah, he transitioned to Muay Thai and thought that, you know what, if I just keep throwing combinations and use my range, because he's a tall guy, he'll do great. He's probably one of the best combination Muay Thai fighters that you'll see, especially in Australia. Combinations wins fights, not one kick, one punch, one kick. Put together combinations. That's how you knock someone out. And he's even proven it on Lion Fight.
Early on, you mentioned you had many fights against Brad Riddell, Taz Series, and Dzhabar Askerov, and you fought these guys many times. What's it like, or how do you prepare for them the second time around?
You know, we're talking like 5 years in between, I can say Taz Daziris, he's on the level of a good Western Suburbs fighter. All right? That's as nice as I'm going to put it. He's at that level. I knocked him out, near killed the poor guy. Brad Riddell, when I fought him a second time, so the first time Brad Riddell, I believe, he already lost the fight before he got in the ring because I was Steve Moxon at the time, you know? I believe when I spoke to him at the weigh-in, I believe he was just happy to be there. But fast forward 5 years, Brad Riddell has grown as a person, grown as a fighter, gotten stronger, gotten better, and he beat me with some really beautiful skills in the ring. And he believed that he could beat me the second time, and he did on points, you know?
Yeah.
So good job for him, you know. I like Brad Riddell. He's very, very skilled, very, very different style. I believe management-wise or personality-wise, he has a lot that he could improve on. But in terms of skill and, you know, the way he strategizes the fight is great.
Cool. What was it like cornering your mate and coach Dave Ashmore for his comeback Muay Thai fight?
Yeah,
the roles are reversed now.
Yeah, the roles are reversed now.
I think this was for a WBC belt, wasn't it?
Yeah, Victorian belt.
Yep.
Geez, you might remember. It may have been against Johnny Burke, maybe not.
No, it was against Paul Azar, I believe.
Yeah, Paul Azar, another sort of big guy, tall guy too. Right? Dave's a big guy. Yeah, it was tricky because Dave was getting that slight bit older, but Dave's passion for Muay Thai.
Oh, it's always there.
Dave's passion for Muay Thai, for fighting, for watching it, for being involved with it, has just been there so strong. I loved Dave for that. I love Dave for the fact that I could call him and say, I got called and I fought the likes of Andy Sauer in Japan on 1 week's notice. I called Dave and said, hey, Dave, can you drop everything and come overseas with me next week? Sure, I'll be there. You know, so I love Dave for that. So cornering Dave was really like emotional for me, for him, for the fact that he was wanting to live out and hopefully finish on a belt. He never won a belt for himself. So that was one thing that I was disappointed for him because he really wanted it. But unfortunately, he never got a belt for himself. He wanted it so bad. Yeah, Dave's passion for the sport really shines when he is involved with the gym and other people that he's teaching.
Have you had much coaching before this fight here? And was it different coaching a regular fighter as compared to someone like Dave?
Yeah, no, I have been in the corner for many, many guys. I've always taught classes and fighters. When I was in Sydney, I was in many corners helping people. I've done the likes of charity shows or corporate boxing shows. Done quite a lot of it. I actually really enjoy it. People say, oh, do you feel nervous and stuff? I don't feel nervous, but I feel like, you know, I want people to, damn it, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they, like, I want them to listen. And that's what makes a good fighter, is somebody that can listen to their coach and do it. Like it's playing a computer game. I don't feel that nervous for them, but I feel like I want them to do well for themselves. I want them, you know, as long as they don't get injured, I want them to just do well for themselves, so that when they come out of the ring, that they're just happy with their performance.
Yep. Nice.
It's always much harder to console someone after the fight. That's hard. It's whether if they've lost or feel like they didn't do well. In the ring is hard, but in the back rooms when they're disappointed in themselves, that's hard, because then they have to go to bed that night and live with that.
Any tips that you would give your fighters if they've lost a fight backstage? Anything that you would usually say to them?
Yeah. If there's no injuries, great. You know, get back in the gym as soon as you can and help your team, help your classes, help your coach. Don't just hide for a week or two. Get back in the gym straight away and be involved with everything. Because even if you lose a fight, understand that everybody in the gym thinks you are a champion no matter what. Everyone thinks you are just so freaking cool because you just got in the ring and showed that you can do it. Because most people at the gym are too scared to do it, or they wish they could do what you did, you know. So yeah, get back in the gym straight away, work on it, and study and watch your videos. You know, it's not about always how many times you kick in the bag. I learned how to fight by when YouTube just come about. I would study people. Matter of fact, I used to copy Mike Zambides. I got told, before I even knew who Mike Zambides was, I got told, you fight like this Greek guy, Mike Zambides. Everybody thought he was an Aussie because Tarik Solak used to bring him over to Australia.
Right.
He's actually Greek, doesn't speak English. Everyone says, you fight like Mike Zambides. So I started studying his videos and copying it. And then I thought, cool, Mike Tyson knocks people out the way he moves his body. I'm going to copy that. So that's it. So that's how I developed my style.
Do you think
So
it's
if you
very
think
important
Mike
for?
Tyson,
Yes.
that's me.
Do you think it's very important for a fighter or coach to quickly identify the attributes that someone has? If you're a tall, lanky person, use your range to your advantage. If you're someone stocky like yourself, work on your close range fighting. Don't try and fight like someone you're not.
Yeah. So that's where a good coach will come into play. Not everyone will be able to do it. Not every coach will be able to do it. Don't try and change someone's style, right? Young fighters move around gyms and change. If you can stay with the one coach from the start, that's awesome. But if you are just staying with the one coach, they need to know how to evolve your style and make it better and better and better. Don't ever try and change someone's style, because your body moves in a certain way, doesn't it, right? So the tall guy does have the range, and that lanky range, whatever. Again, we'll go back to Ramesh Habib. You would never try and get him to fight like me, because he has so much more range and he's better at range and throws long combinations and makes people pay for it. So yeah, I think you need to have that great relationship between coach and be open as a fighter to learn from everyone. So I've been lucky enough to travel the world and train at the likes of Voss Gym in Holland, train in Vegas, many different boxing gyms and kickboxing gyms like Tap Out and many famous boxing gyms. Thailand, wherever I've trained, I really try to absorb everything I can. I'm not trying to change my style, I'm trying to evolve my style.
That's really well said, mate. Flash forward to today. You've got your own gym now as a training room, and you started coaching guys, sometimes guys from scratch too, for the very first fight. What's it like now training the next generation of fighters? And you actually backstage here at a Rebellion show. What's it like for you training someone from scratch to the very first fight?
Yeah, it's a weird one with me about being a coach. I genuinely don't feel that, like Dave Ashmore, he loves Muay Thai that much. He's willing to give up everything to get people and coach people and get in the ring. I'm a bit different. I love it, but I want whoever I'm coaching to have the same attitude as me and be like, I want to fight every week. Get me in there now. I don't care what weight division. I don't care if it's gloves or no gloves. Let's get in there and fight. I'll say kids these days because I'm over 30. Kids these days are bloody useless. You know, they're like, oh, my shin's sore. Oh, I don't know because I'm busy with work.
Mum's birthday, my dad's birthday.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Or, you know how many times I've signed people up for a fight? I've got it all matched up, all done. Oh, I forgot it's my cousin's sister's bar mitzvah that weekend.
What's the worst pull-out story you've heard from someone like that? I've got a few.
I've got the whole. I forgot that. I forgot that it was my brother's wedding and stuff like that. Like, well, geez, okay. I forgot my parents were coming from overseas to visit. Yeah. So, what have you got? What have you heard?
I'm watching The Lion King that night. Mum's birthday, someone else's birthday, but that fighter forgets that they're gonna get blacklisted by the promoter, and it's gonna make the coach look bad and the gym look bad.
Yeah.
I'm sure every promoter has like a checklist of how many gyms and how many times they pulled out of shows. That all adds to it.
Sure. I managed myself, right, for the best part of my later career. At least my last 30 odd fights, I managed myself for the biggest fights all over the world. So I believe that it's been easier for the fact that I haven't had to wait for the message to be given to my coach. Then the coach tells me, then I tell the coach, then the coach tells the promoter. So it's just going direct. So I feel like that's where I've benefited with myself. But I've also never, ever pulled out of a fight. That's how I've racked up 76 pro fights. If I say I'm going to fight, I'll be there. A matter of fact, how can I show you? I've chopped off the top of my finger.
Jeez.
I'm missing the top of my index finger. I chopped off the top of my finger on a wood planer, and I fought 8 weeks later with a little piece of aluminium that I folded over it and taped onto my finger, jammed it into my glove, and I fought.
Jesus.
You know, that was early on. That was like when I was 19 years old, and I had about 8 fights at the time. There is no way I was going to pull out of a fight. Got to fight. That's how you be a fighter. Fight.
What are some bad advices that you've heard being given in our combat industry?
Okay, I've heard this from a few promoters, and I've fallen for it once. I'm not a fan of his as a promoter. You've had the experience with me in that gym. You were there the day that this happened when we were sparring. But I've had this experience with this promoter where he says, I've got this guy for you. And I was at a point in my career where, although I want to be a fighter and fight anyone, I was like, I don't know if that's a good fight for me. And he said to me, oh, what, are you scared? And I said, oh, shit, I'll fight him. Okay, we'll fight. A matter of fact, I knocked the guy out in 2 rounds. It was Massi Nuristani who I fought at the time. I knocked him out in the 2nd round. But the reason why I didn't want to fight him, it was because my career was going up here. Fighting Massi Nuristani in Muni Pond's racecourse was down here. I wanted to fight the best in the world. And he said to me, are you scared? So I feel like believe in yourself. That's one thing I've always had, self-belief that I'll beat anyone, self-belief that I'll be able to get in the ring, make weight, I'll beat anyone that they put in front of me. But don't let anyone sort of like manipulate you or twist you in a way that you don't want to go. It's hard one to answer, but that's one thing that really sticks out as like that really hit my heart. I'm like, you know what? I'm not scared of anyone, but I'm not going to be treated like a high school kid. Don't speak to me like that, you know? That's all I've got for you. I can't really think of any other bad advice that I've heard in the fight industry or that I've been given.
Yep.
I'm always very positive, you know, when it comes to, I'll be straight up with people. Why do you want to fight? And often people can't tell me why. More people want to fight these days because they want a really cool William Liu Facebook profile picture. You know what I mean? They don't understand that you've got to get in the ring and punch on. By the time it gets to that, they've already scared themselves out of it. They get in the ring at 40% and go, oh, shit, I didn't realize we actually had to fight to have these cool pictures. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all fun and games until you get really injured. I tell people, when I hear a lot of stories of people saying they want to fight, sometimes I feel like what they're saying is they want to throw down, but they're not ready to get hit themselves and put in the hard yards and put in the time. They want that picture. They want to just hit someone, but they don't want to do the hard work that comes with it.
So are we blaming William Liu for taking awesome photos?
You can take I'll take a little bit of the blame.
Maybe it's you that's making everyone want to be a fighter. I see a lot with females. Females fighting has come into Australia. It's awesome to see females fight. But and a lot of these really cool young fighters. But if there's a gym, and I've been involved with the gym actually, and again, I won't name names, but you could literally go up to the whiteboard and write your name that you want to be matched for the next show. I reckon it's got to be earned. It's got to be, if you want to have a fight, your very first fight, it's got to be earned. When I started fighting, you just shut your mouth and wait for the coach to say, Steve, would you like to fight?
That's old school, mate.
You don't put your name on the board and say, match me for the next Rebellion Root show. I feel like even that's got to be earned. That is the best shows. Thank God for Sai for making Rebellion Roots and allowing people to fight in a better controlled way. It's beautiful styles, beautiful Muay Thai fights. It's better than just the old swinging at each other. You know, I love that. But yeah, I feel like as a fighter and as a coach, you've got to earn your spot even for that first fight, because someone can get hurt and your family doesn't want to come along. You don't want to invite them to come along and watch you get bashed. And you don't want the crowd going, oh my God, why the hell are they in the ring? So, make sure you earn your spot, train hard, and get as much experience as you can from every little thing around you. I call it like I'm watching porn. I'm constantly watching fights on Facebook, on YouTube. I love watching fights. I love seeing different styles. I love learning. And then when you see it, then go in the gym and try and do that on the bag when you're sparring next. That's how you're going to evolve your style. Don't just keep doing that same old boring style. Unless you're happy to be just a Western Suburbs fighter, and if you're just happy to have a couple of fights, then that's fine. But if you want to make a life out of it and a career out of it, you need to evolve, get better, fight the best, win, lose, or draw, be there.
Perfect, man. Now, moving on to our last photo. This is going to be slightly different. I was actually on a plane to Thailand for one of my Thai trips, and I stumbled across your fight on Top King with the one and only Buakaw.
Yeah.
Now, looking at this fight, I was thinking, like you said, you were once a suburban fighter. You fought on those QBH hotel days. You fought on those pub shows. From all those days, coming onto the world stage, fighting the best in the business in their sport, I'm thinking to myself, man, if someone like yourself can do it, what's stopping everyone else?
That's right. This was at the top of his career, Buakaw's career.
What's one piece of advice you would give yourself, your younger self?
Yeah. So this one fight in particular was probably at the start of that downward slope in my career. And as a man, I'm not going to get emotional like my last video that I did on YouTube recently. I don't need to talk about my ex-partner or my daughter, but I will say I got married to my first wife 3.5 weeks before this fight. All right. So I didn't even want to be at that wedding. I got extremely drunk. I ate way too much food. I was just not in a good place, but I went through with the wedding. And then 3 weeks later, I was in Paris. I had my honeymoon by myself and my coach in Paris fighting Buakaw. Once again, I said I'll never say no to a fight, so I took this fight. I wasn't in a good place in my life, and I took it a bit for granted. I wasn't physically in best shape for this fight either. But I understood that Buakaw still only had 2 arms and 2 legs like me. We have elbow pads on this fight because that's just a
France,
rule.
right?
In France, that's right. Top King World Series. I'll say it, the worst show I've ever fought on. The worst. The organization was shocking. The people involved were just all over the place. When I arrived in Paris, they put me in a random hotel in some other suburb before they took me to the main hotel. They didn't organize anybody to pick me up, and I had to go stay at some random hotel for the first night. I said, I need a sauna. Nobody organized a sauna for me. So 3 a.m, I was outside running laps around the hotel with my sweatsuit on while the rubbish collection trucks were doing the rounds. I was literally running around the hotel just to make weight. The day of the fight, on the main event fighting Buakaw, everybody had their own change rooms except Steve Moxon. Everybody had their own name on their wall except me. So I've just literally knocked on a guy's door who actually beat me in glory. I knocked on his door and said, man, can I please use your rooms, your change rooms? And I'm the main event against Buakaw. So I was treated extremely badly. But fighting Buakaw was cool. How can you not say no to that? Fighting Buakaw is my second ever Muay Thai fight. I've never fought with elbows. I fought with elbows once before that, and that was about 8 years prior in China.
Yep.
It was a 4-man eliminator, and I made the final. I lost in the final. But yeah, that was my second ever Muay Thai fight ever. That's it.
That's awesome, man. And with the wealth of experience you bring, I can't wait to see the next generations of fighters that you bring up at your gym, man.
Yeah, I want to instill in the people that like self-belief is the biggest thing. My mantra before any single fight is too fit, too fast, too smart, too strong. I have that written on a big poster in my lounge room, actually. Too fit, too fast, too smart, too strong. I'll repeat that to myself before a fight. Not many people know that, actually. I repeat that. I tell myself I believe in myself no matter what. And I'll get in the ring and go as hard as I can go. And the crowd in Paris, by the end of it, were cheering for me because I got off the ground about 7 times. He kept dropping me with his amazingly timed knees. Every time I threw a hook, he kept kneeing me and dropping me. I kept getting up. So by the end of it, they were cheering for me. At the end of the fight, Buakaw said, "You have a heart of a lion." And I'll never forget that. You have a heart of a lion. That was the one English sentence that he put together for me.
That's awesome, man. I suppose at the end of the day, that's what matters, eh? The heart and the people that you fought, not the ones you ducked.
That's right. Exactly right. The stories to tell.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, Steve. It was a blast having you on.
No worries. You know, I hope my passion comes across, man, because I just genuinely am passionate about fighting, and that's how I racked up my fights. That's how I got to travel the world. That's how I got to make a living out of doing something I love. What starts as a hobby ended up being my career and my life.
Perfect, man.